The stars had never looked so cold to Captain Una Park as they did on that morning. She stood at the wide window of her quarters on the ESS Hedong, watching the distant lights that humans had dreamed about for thousands of years. Today, those dreams had turned into nightmares. 3 hours ago, the largest fleet anyone had ever seen appeared near Earth's moon. 300 warships, each one bigger than anything humans had ever built. They came from the Varth Empire, a civilization that had conquered 17 star systems. They had crushed hundreds of species. They had never lost a war dot, and now they wanted Earth. Admiral Toven stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. He was tall and gray-skinned, with 4 eyes that had watched countless worlds burn. He felt nothing as he looked at the small blue planet on his view screen. It was just another conquest. Another name to add to the Empire's long list. His communications officer turned to him. "Admiral, the transmission is ready." "Send it," Toven said. He did not even sit down. This would not take long. The message went out to every device on Earth. Every phone. Every computer, every screen showed the same face. The cold, emotionless face of Admiral Toven. "People of Earth," he began. "I am Admiral Toven of the Varth Empire. Your planet now belongs to us. You have 1 planetary rotation to surrender completely. Give us your governments, your resources, your people. If you refuse, we will destroy everything. Your cities will burn. Your oceans will boil. Nothing will remain. You have no choice. Surrender, and some of you will live. Resist, and all of you will die." The message ended. Across Earth, 7 billion people watched in terror. In the headquarters of Earth's Space Defense Force, generals and admirals gathered around a long table. Their faces were pale. Some had tears in their eyes. They had 47 ships. 47 old, tired ships against 300 monsters. General Hana Shen, the oldest person in the room, spoke first. "We cannot win this fight. Then we surrender?" asked Admiral Junho Kwan. "What choice do we have?" General Shin said, "If we fight, everyone dies. If we surrender, maybe some will survive." The room fell silent. No one wanted to say the words, but everyone was thinking them. Earth was finished. Then the door opened, and Captain Una Park walked in. She was 43 years old. Her black hair was pulled back tight. Her uniform was clean but old, like her ship. She had served in space for 20 years, longer than most people in the room. She had fought pirates, rescued stranded ships, and explored the edges of the solar system. She was not the highest-ranking officer. She was not the most decorated. But when she entered the room, everyone turned to look at her. "Captain Park," General Shin said. "We are in the middle of—" "I know what you are doing," Una said. Her voice was calm but hard. "You are deciding whether to give our planet to monsters." "We are trying to save lives," Admiral Kwan said. "No, you are trying to delay death." Una walked to the window and looked up at the sky. Somewhere up there, 300 ships waited to destroy her world. The Varth do not keep promises. I have read the reports from other systems. When a planet surrenders, they take everything anyway. They kill whoever they want. They turn the survivors into slaves. Surrender does not save anyone. It just means we die on our knees instead of our feet. General Shin shook her head. "And what do you suggest, Captain? We fight with 47 ships? We might destroy 1 or 2 of theirs before they wipe us out." Una turned around. Her eyes were bright and fierce. "Then we destroy 1 or 2, and we make them remember. We show every species in this galaxy that humans do not surrender. We show them that the Varth can be hurt, that they can be beaten. Maybe not today, maybe not by us, but someday someone will finish what we start." The room was silent. Then Commander Do-Wan Kim, Yuna's second-in-command, stood up from his chair in the corner. "I stand with my captain," he said. One by one, other officers stood. Young lieutenants and old commanders. Men and women who had spent their lives among the stars. Not all of them, but enough. General Shin looked at them for a long moment. Then she sighed. "You are going to get us all killed." "Maybe," Yuna said. "But we will die as humans, not as slaves." An hour later, Yuna sat in the captain's chair of the Hedong. Her bridge crew was at their stations. Lieutenant Yoongi Choi at navigation. Commander Kim at tactical. Chief Engineer Suho Lim monitoring the engines. They were her family, these people. They had served together for 5 years. They trusted her with their lives. Now she was about to spend those lives. The communications panel lit up. "Captain," said the young officer at the station, "the Varath flagship is hailing us. They want our response to their ultimatum." Yuna took a deep breath. She thought about her mother, who had died when she was young. She thought about her father, who had taught her to never back down from a bully. She thought about Earth, its mountains and oceans, its cities and villages, its 7 billion souls who were counting on her. "Open a channel," she said. Admiral Toven's face appeared on the screen. He looked bored. He expected to hear words of surrender. He expected begging and pleading and promises of obedience. Instead, he saw a human woman with fire in her eyes. "Admiral Toven," Yuna said, "I am Captain Yuna Park of the Earthship Hedong. I speak for my planet." She paused. "We have received your ultimatum. Here is our answer. We will not surrender. We will attack. You have come to our home. You will not leave it alive." For the first time in 300 years, Admiral Toven felt surprised. The channel closed. On the bridge of the Hedong, no one spoke. Then Commander Kim laughed a short, sharp sound. "Well," he said, "I guess we are doing this." Captain Yuna Park smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had made peace with death. "Yes," she said, "we are." The news of Captain Park's response spread across Earth in minutes. Some people called her crazy. Some called her a hero. Most just prayed. In the dark space between Earth and Mars, 47 human ships gathered together. They were not beautiful ships. They were not powerful ships. Most of them were old cargo vessels that had been given weapons and armor. Their engines were loud, and their hulls were patched with whatever metal the engineers could find. But they were all that Earth had. Captain Yuna Park called a meeting of all ship commanders. Their faces appeared as holograms in the war room of the Hedong. Some looked scared. Some looked angry. All of them looked tired. "Thank you for coming," Yuna said. "I know what I have asked you to do. I know many of you think I am leading you to death. You are probably right." No one laughed. No one argued. "The Varath have 300 ships," she continued. "Each one is bigger than our largest vessel. Various vessel. Their weapons are stronger. Their shields are better. If we fight them the normal way, line up, shoot, and hope, we will die in the first 10 minutes. Commander Jizuhan of the destroyer Baiko crossed her arms. "Then, what do you suggest, Captain?" Yuna touched a button, and a holographic map of the solar system appeared in the center of the room. "We do something they do not expect. We attack. We have 47 ships," Captain Minho Kang said. He commanded the cruiser Cheongryong, one of the few real warships in the fleet. "They have 300. How do we attack?" "By being crazy." Yuna pointed at the map. "The Varath are waiting near the moon. They expect us to form a defensive line around Earth. They expect us to protect our planet while they slowly destroy us. That is what every other species has done. Because it is the smart thing to do," someone said. No, it is the expected thing to do. And the Vorath always win because their enemies are predictable. Yuna moved her hand across the map. Here is what we are going to do instead. We fly to the asteroid belt. We hide among the rocks. Then we use Jupiter's gravity to launch ourselves at them faster than they think possible. Lieutenant Unji, who had been running numbers on her console, looked up. Captain, if we do that, we will be moving at velocities that could tear our ships apart. I know. We will need to reinforce our hulls. Add extra engines. It will be dangerous. It will be suicide, Captain Kang said. Yuna nodded. Maybe, but we will hit them before they can react. And we will not waste time on their small ships. We go straight for the flagship. We kill Admiral Tovan. The room fell silent. Then Commander Kim spoke. If we destroy the flagship, their fleet loses its leader. The Vorath are not used to independent thinking. Without Tovan, they might retreat. Or at least hesitate. Exactly. Yuna looked at each holographic face in turn. I am not promising victory. I am promising a chance. A small chance. But it is better than sitting here and waiting to die. Commander Jizuhan was the first to respond. My ship is old and slow, she said. But my crew is ready. We will follow you, Captain. One by one, the other commanders agreed. Not all of them were happy. Not all of them believed. But all of them were tired of being afraid. When the meeting ended, Yuna stayed behind with her senior officers. The weight of what she had promised pressed down on her shoulders like a mountain. Do you really think this can work? Chief Engineer Suho asked. He was a big man with gentle hands, better at fixing things than breaking them. The numbers are against us. The numbers have always been against us, Yuna said. Humans are small and weak. We cannot run as fast as horses or swim as well as fish. But we are still here. We survived ice ages and plagues and wars. We survived because we refused to give up. Commander Kim sat down in the chair and rubbed his eyes. The Vorath are not a plague. They are 300 warships with enough firepower to crack our planet in half. Then we cracked them first. Yunji looked up from her console. I have finished the calculations, Captain. If we strip down our ships and add the extra engines, we can reach the required speed. But she hesitated. The stress on the hulls will be extreme. Some ships might not survive the acceleration. Give the crews a choice, Yuna said. Anyone who wants to stay behind can stay. No shame. No judgment. And if everyone stays behind? Yuna looked at her. They will not. Humans do not run from fights. Not when their homes are at stake. The next 12 hours were the busiest the fleet had ever seen. Engineers worked without sleep, welding extra engines onto hulls and reinforcing weak points. Pilots ran simulations until their eyes burned. Weapons officers checked every missile and every gun. Captain Park walked through the corridors of the Hedong, talking to her crew. She knew most of them by name. She knew their families, their dreams, their fears. She did not give them false hope. She told them the truth. We might die tomorrow, she said to a young weapons officer named Hyan. He was barely 20 years old, with bright eyes and a quick smile. You can leave if you want. No one will think less of you. Hyan shook his head. My little sister is on Earth. If we do not stop them, she dies anyway. Better to fight. Yuna put her hand on his shoulder. Your sister is lucky to have you. At midnight, Earth time, the fleet was ready. 47 ships, held together by hope and welding, pointed toward the asteroid belt. Captain Park stood on her bridge and looked at the stars. All ships, she said into the fleet-wide channel. This is Captain Park. In a few hours, we will do something no one has ever done. We will attack the Vorath Empire. Many of us will die, maybe all of us, but we will not die quietly. We will not die begging for mercy. We will die screaming and fighting and showing the galaxy what humans are made of." She paused. Her voice was strong and clear. "I am proud to serve with you. All of you. Now, let us go make some history." The engines roared to life. One by one, the ships of Earth began their journey toward destiny. Behind them, 7 billion people watched the sky and prayed. Admiral Toven sat in his command chair and waited. He had been waiting for 16 hours now, and he was getting bored. The humans had not surrendered. They had not attacked. They had simply disappeared. His sensors showed nothing. His scouts found nothing. It was as if the human fleet had vanished into the darkness of space. "Perhaps they ran away," said his second-in-command, a thin officer named Kresh. "Perhaps they are hiding on one of the outer planets." "They did not run," Toven said. He stared at the view screen, at the small blue planet that should have been his by now. "That woman? She meant what she said. She is planning something. What can 47 primitive ships do against us?" Toven did not answer. He did not know. And that worried him. 300 million kilometers away, the human fleet hid among the rocks of the asteroid belt. The ships were dark and silent, running on minimal power to avoid detection. Inside each vessel, crews waited in the dim light, eating cold food and speaking in whispers. On the Hedong, Captain Unipark studied the tactical display. The Varth fleet was exactly where she expected, in a loose formation around the moon, confident and relaxed. They thought they had already won. "All ships report ready," Commander Kim said. "The extra engines are holding. Yoonji has plotted the course." Lieutenant Eunju nodded, her fingers dancing across her console. "We will use Jupiter's gravity to sling ourselves toward the enemy. At maximum acceleration, we will reach attack velocity in 47 minutes. They will have about 90 seconds to react before we hit them." 90 seconds, Una repeated. "Is that enough time for them to stop us?" "No, not if we are lucky." Luck. That was what it came down to. Luck and courage and the desperate hope that somehow, against all odds, they could hurt the monsters who had come to destroy their world. Una opened a channel to the fleet. "All ships, this is the captain. Begin acceleration in 5 minutes. Stay tight. Stay focused. And remember why we are here." She closed the channel and looked at her crew. They were scared. She could see it in their eyes, in the way their hands trembled slightly at their stations. But they were also ready. Ready to fight. Ready to die. "Let us go to war," she said. The human fleet burst out of the asteroid belt like rockets from a cannon. The extra engines screamed with power, pushing the ships faster and faster. Inside the vessels, crews were pressed into their seats by the force. Warning lights flashed. Metal groaned under the stress. But the ships held together. On the Eternal Dominion, alarms suddenly filled the bridge. "Admiral!" Kresh shouted. "Contact!" Multiple contacts coming in fast from the asteroid belt. Toven jumped to his feet. "How many?" 47. All of them. Moving at impossible speeds. Toven stared at the tactical display. The human ships were coming straight at him. Not at his fleet. At him. At his flagship. "They are insane," he whispered. "Orders, Admiral?" "All ships, intercept. Destroy them before they reach us." The Varth fleet scrambled to respond. 300 ships turned their weapons toward the incoming humans. Missiles launched. Energy beams cut through space. The darkness between the moon and Mars lit up with fire. The first human ship died in seconds. The cargo vessel Deongju, carrying 20 crew members, was hit by 4 missiles at once. It exploded in a ball of flame, leaving nothing behind. Then another ship died, and another. But the rest kept coming. Lieutenant Taeyeon Beek led a squadron of 12 small fighters from the carrier Dokdo. His job was simple: get in the way, draw fire, buy time for the bigger ships. Stay close, he told his pilots. Do not try to be heroes. Just keep them busy. A Vareth cruiser appeared ahead of them, its guns already firing. Taeyeon dove his fighter straight at it, weaving through the energy beams with movements that should have been impossible. His pilots followed, spreading out to make themselves harder to hit. 2 fighters exploded. Then, 3 more. But the rest reached the cruiser and opened fire. Their small weapons could not destroy the massive ship, but they could blind its sensors and damage its guns. That is for Earth, Taeyeon said as he flew past the burning cruiser dot in the center of the chaos. Commander Jisoo Han watched her display and made a decision. Helm, she said calmly. Set course for the gap in their formation. Maximum speed. Her weapons officer looked at her with wide eyes. Commander, that course takes us through 17 enemy ships. I know. The destroyer Baiko was old and slow. It could not outrun the Vareth ships. It could not outfight them. But it could do one thing. It could die in the right place at the right time. Jisoo opened a channel to the head-on. Captain Park, I'm going to make you a door. Use it well. Jisoo, Yuna's voice cracked. You do not have to. Yes, I do. It has been an honor, Captain. Han out. She closed the channel and looked at her crew. They understood. They had all volunteered for this. All hands, she said, prepare for ramming speed. It has been my privilege to serve with you. The Baiko accelerated toward the enemy line. Vareth ships turned their guns on her, but she did not stop. She did not slow down. Her engines pushed harder than they were ever meant to push. The first impact came when she hit a Vareth destroyer at full speed. The collision destroyed both ships instantly, but Jisoo had prepared for this. Every compartment of the Baiko was filled with explosives. When the ship broke apart, those explosives detonated in sequence, creating a chain reaction that spread to the surrounding vessels. 5 Vareth ships died in that moment. 5 more were crippled. And in the chaos, a gap appeared in the enemy formation. Jisoo, Yuna whispered, tears in her eyes. Then she straightened in her chair. All ships, through the gap, now. 23 human ships poured through the opening that the Baiko had created. They were battered and burning, but they were still fighting. Behind them, the Vareth fleet scrambled to catch up. Ahead of them, the Eternal Dominion waited. The battle was far from over. But for the first time, Admiral Toven felt something he had not felt in centuries. Fear. The head-on was dying. Captain Yuna Park could feel it in the way the ship shook with every impact, in the groaning of metal that had been pushed far beyond its limits. Half of her decks were open to the cold vacuum of space. Fires burned in the corridors that still had air. The lights flickered with every hit, but they were close now. So close. Through the shattered view screen, she could see the Eternal Dominion. The Vareth flagship was enormous, a mountain of dark metal covered with weapons. It hung in space like a god of war, surrounded by the burning debris of human ships that had tried to reach it. Status report, Yuna said. Her voice was hoarse from shouting orders over the noise of battle. Commander Kim wiped blood from a cut on his forehead. Main weapons are gone. We have 1 missile tube that might still work. Shields are at 3%. Engines are holding, but barely. How many ships do we have left? Kim checked his console. His face went pale. 12, Captain. 12 out of 47. 12. In less than an hour, they had lost 35 ships. Thousands of people. Friends and comrades who had followed her into this impossible battle. But the flagship was right there. If they could just reach it, what about the cargo bay? Yuna asked quietly. Chief Engineer Suho looked up from his station. He understood what she was asking. The mining explosives are still intact. We loaded 300 tons before we left. Enough to crack an asteroid. Enough to crack a flagship? Suho nodded slowly. Yes, if we can get close enough. Yuna closed her eyes for a moment. She had known it might come to this. From the moment she decided to fight, she had known that she might have to give everything. Not just her life, but her ship, her crew, her family. Unji, she said, plot a collision course for the Eternal Dominion. The bridge went silent. Lieutenant Yunji stared at her captain with wide eyes. A collision course? Captain, that means... I know what it means. Yuna stood up from her chair and looked at her crew. These people had served with her for years. They had trusted her with their lives. Now she was asking them to give those lives away. I am ordering all hands to abandon ship. Get to the escape pods. That is an order. No one moved. Commander Kim turned to face her. There was no fear in his eyes. Only a strange peace. With respect, Captain, we did not come here to run away. We came here to fight. This is not about fighting anymore. This is about finishing what we started. Kim walked over to stand beside her. You said it yourself. We show the galaxy what humans are made of. How can we do that if we leave you to die alone? Yunji nodded. My sister is on Earth. If this works, she lives. That is worth more than my life. Chief Suho laughed, a deep rumbling sound. Besides, Captain, I already broke the escape pods. Accidentally, of course. Yuna looked at him. You did what? Accidentally, he repeated with a small smile. Very sorry. These old ships, you know, things break all the time. She wanted to be angry. She wanted to order them off the ship at gunpoint. But she could not, because she understood. They were not staying because they wanted to die. They were staying because they refused to let her die alone. They were staying because that was what family did. You are all insane, she said softly. We learned from the best, Kim replied. Yuna nodded. She blinked back tears and straightened her uniform. There would be time for crying later. Or maybe there would not be. Either way, she had a job to do. Unji, collision course. All remaining ships, cover our approach. She opened a channel to the fleet. This is Captain Park. The Hedong is going to ram the enemy flagship. I need you to keep them off us for as long as possible. Whatever happens, do not stop fighting. Earth is counting on you. Captain Minho Kang's voice came back immediately. Understood, Captain. The Jeongryeong will cover your starboard side. Other voices followed. The commanders of the 11 surviving ships, each one promising to protect the Hedong until their last breath. Each one knowing they would probably die in the next. Few minutes. The human fleet moved into formation around the burning Hedong. They were pathetic psych-battered ships with flickering shields and dying engines, facing a fleet of 300 monsters. But they moved with purpose. They moved like warriors. Admiral Toven watched the human ships approaching and finally understood what he was facing. These were not primitive aliens. These were not cowards who would run at the first sign of danger. These were something he had never encountered before. These were humans. Destroy that ship, he commanded, pointing at the Hedong. All weapons focus on that ship. The Varth fleet turned its guns toward the human flagship. Thousands of missiles launched. Energy beams cut through space. It was enough firepower to destroy a small moon. But the human ships threw themselves into the path of destruction. The cruiser Hansen died first, taking a missile barrage meant for the Hedong. Then the destroyer Ulsan, ramming a Varth interceptor that had gotten too close. Ship after ship sacrificed themselves, buying precious seconds for Captain Park. Captain Minho Kang's Cheonggryong was hit by 17 missiles at once. The ship broke apart in a ball of flame. But before he died, Kang managed to send one final message. "Keep going, Captain. We are right behind you." Yuna cried openly now, tears streaming down her face as she watched her fleet die around her. But she did not look away. She owed them that much. She would remember every ship, every name, every sacrifice. "Distance to target?" she asked. 10,000 kilometers, Yunji replied. 90 seconds to impact. The Hedong shook violently as another hit struck the hull. More alarms joined the chorus of noise on the bridge. More systems failed. 60 seconds. A Vorath destroyer appeared directly in their path. Commander Kim grabbed the weapons console and fired their last missile. It struck the destroyer's engines, sending it spinning out of control. 30 seconds. The Eternal Dominion filled the view screen now, a wall of dark metal and flashing weapons. Admiral Tovan's face appeared on the communications panel, screaming orders that no one could hear over the chaos. 10 seconds. Captain Yuna Park stood at the center of her bridge, surrounded by the people she loved. They were not crying anymore. They were not afraid. They were proud. "For Earth," she said. "For Earth?" They answered. The Hedong struck the Eternal Dominion at full speed, and the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. The explosion was visible from Earth. 7 billion people looked up at the night sky and saw a new star appear near the moon. It burned bright white for 3 seconds, then faded to orange and red. Those who had telescopes saw something more. The massive shape of the Vorath flagship breaking apart like glass. Its pieces tumbling through space in a silent dance of destruction. The Hedong and the Eternal Dominion died together. 300 tons of mining explosives, combined with the speed of the collision, created a force that nothing could survive. Admiral Tovan, who had conquered 17 star systems, did not even have time to scream. One moment, he was standing on his bridge, ordering his fleet to destroy the humans. The next moment, he was nothing. But the destruction did not stop there. The explosion sent waves of energy and debris in all directions. 30 Vorath ships that had been too close to their flagship were caught in the blast. Some were destroyed instantly. Others were crippled, their engines dead and their weapons silent. The remaining ships, suddenly leaderless, fell into chaos. On Earth, in the headquarters of the Space Defense Force, General Hana Shin watched the battle on her tactical display. She had been crying for the past hour, watching ship after ship disappear from her screen. Now only 5 human vessels remained, scattered among the debris of the greatest battle in human history. "The flagship is destroyed," her aide reported, his voice shaking. "Admiral Tovan is dead." General Shin stood up. "What about the rest of their fleet?" They are retreating, General. Without their admiral, they do not know what to do. They are leaving the system." Silence fell over the room. Then, slowly, someone started to clap. Then another person. Then another. Within seconds, the entire headquarters was filled with the sound of applause and cheering and crying. They had won, against all odds, against all logic, against 300 warships from the most powerful empire in the galaxy. They had won. The 5 surviving human ships limped back to Earth. They were barely holding together, their hulls scarred and their crews exhausted. But they came back as heroes. When they landed, millions of people were waiting to greet them. The pilots and officers who had survived became legends overnight, their names spoken with reverence across the planet. But the greatest honor went to those who did not return. Captain Yuna Park, Commander Do Hwan, Kim, Lieutenant Yoonji Choi, Chief, Engineer Suho Lim, Commander Jisoo Han, Captain, Minho Kang, Lieutenant Taeyun Beek, and thousands more, the men and women, who had given their lives to save their world. Their names were carved into monuments. Their faces were painted on murals. Children learned their stories in school, and adults whispered them to each other like prayers. But the impact of the battle reached far beyond. Words spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. The Vorath Empire, the undefeated conquerors, had been humiliated. Their flagship was destroyed. Their admiral was dead. Their fleet had run from a species that should have been easy prey. On 100 conquered worlds, people who had surrendered long ago began to whisper. They whispered about the blue planet in a small solar system. They whispered about the human woman who had said, "We will attack." They whispered about the small fleet that had charged 300 warships and won. And then, slowly, they stopped whispering. They started shouting. On the planet Vorn, where the Vorath had ruled for 50 years, a factory worker named Cal stood up and refused to work. When the guards came to punish him, his fellow workers stood up too. Then the guards dropped their weapons and joined them. Within a week, Vorn was free. On the planet Meridia, a teacher named Sana showed her students a recording of Captain Park's final message. "We will attack," the human woman said on the screen. Sana paused the recording and looked at her class. "If they could do it," she said, "so can we." That night, the resistance movement on Meridia gained 10,000 new members. On a dozen other worlds, the same story repeated. The Vorath had ruled through fear, the fear that resistance was pointless, that surrender was the only option, that the powerful could never be challenged. The humans had shattered that fear. They had proven that the impossible was possible. The Vorath Empire began to crumble. Without Admiral Tovan, the Imperial fleet had no strong leader. Different admirals fought for control, weakening the Empire from within. The rebellions spread faster than they could be contained. Worlds that had been quiet for generations suddenly rose up. Species that had never fought back before started fighting now. Within 5 years, the Vorath had lost half their territory. Within 10 years, the Empire was gone broken into a dozen smaller states. None of them strong enough to threaten anyone. And at the center of every story, every legend, every song of freedom, were the same words, "We will attack." On the 10th anniversary of the battle, Earth built a memorial in orbit around the moon. It was a simple structure, a ring of metal with the names of every ship and every person who had died in the fight. At the center of the ring was a statue of Captain Una Park, standing tall with her eyes fixed on the stars. People came from across the galaxy to visit the memorial. Humans, of course, but also members of other species, people who had been freed because of what happened here. They left flowers and notes and small gifts. They stood in silence and remembered. One visitor, an old woman from Vorn, stood before the statue for a long time. Tears ran down her gray face as she looked up at the human captain who had changed everything. "Thank you," she whispered. "You did not know us. You did not fight for us. But you saved us anyway. You showed us that the darkness can be pushed back, that the strong can fall. That hope is never truly lost." She placed a small flower at the base of the statue and walked away. Above her, the stars continued to shine. They had witnessed the rise and fall of countless empires. They had seen species come and go like waves on a shore. But they would remember this moment. They would remember the small blue planet that had refused to surrender. They would remember the woman who had faced an empire and said 3 words that changed the galaxy. "We will attack," and they did.